The top 25 teams from the AP poll have been officially released for the preseason. Sun Devils play 5 of them. How many can they win?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. If you have not hit subscribe on YouTube yet, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are trying to get to 1,000 followers right now. We are currently at 857. We're right around the corner. I think that we can get it done really, really soon. And then, of course, we'll find a way to celebrate together as a channel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. There's no playoffs right now. Sports aren't sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the show. Today, we are taking a look at the AP Top 25 preseason poll that was released earlier today. To no surprise, the Big 12 was well represented, and ASU is playing all 5 of the teams that made the preseason poll from the Big 12. Now, there's not a surprise as to who was ranked. I have gone on record and said that these 5 teams are in their own tier. When it comes to the Big 12, I believe that there's really only 2 tiers, the really good teams and the mediocre teams. And then you have some teams that are kind of in limbo. You don't really know where to put them necessarily. But the top 5 teams are all ranked. Number 12, Utah. Number 17, Oklahoma State. Number 18, Kansas State. Number 21, Arizona. And number 22, Kansas. ASU is playing all 5 of them. 3 of them will be on the road. They'll be traveling to K-State, traveling to Oklahoma State, and traveling to Arizona. And then they will be hosting Utah, and they will be hosting Kansas. With those 5 on your schedule, it's brutal. And there's a very good chance you lose all 5 of them, which means you need to scrape together 6 wins out of 7 possible games, which isn't exactly an easy thing to do. But we're here to take a look at these 5 games, these 5 ranked teams. We're here to discuss who has the best odds to lose to the Sun Devils. So let's go ahead. We're going reverse order. So we're going from hardest to easiest, from most unlikely to most likely. Number 5, should not be surprised, it's Utah. Utah is in a class of their own, and they are the heavyweight favorites to win the Big 12 for a reason. This is a team that's very well constructed. They're very well coached. As long as Kyle Whittingham is there, they can do anything they want. They have not been able to make the college football playoff in the last handful of years. There's no way that they don't make it this year unless the wheels completely fall off the wagon again. Now that it's 12 teams and Utah should be able to win the Big 12, they feel like a lock for the playoff. And it's a team that's got a lot of talent. They've got, first of all, you've got Cam Rising, which that's all you need on offense, as one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, and one of the guys who just plays at a high level. Like, does he have the biggest arm? No. Is he most athletic? No. Is he the fastest? No. But you know what? He's just good at football. And at the end of the day, sometimes that's all you need to win football games. Just be good at it. And Cameron Rising is very good at football. They got him weapon with Brant Keithy returning from injury. He missed last year along with Rising. He's back. He's one of the favorites to be one of the top tight ends in the country. They also added Dorian Singer, wide receiver, played at Arizona 2 years ago, played at USC last year. He's your new number 1 receiver, replacing Devon Vele. This is a good player. He was buried on a very good USC depth chart last year, was hard for him to really stand out. But he's going to Utah now, where he will be one of the featured players in that offense. He's bound to break out. Defensively, there's a ton of guys, and there's one player in particular who really stands out to me, and that's Lander Barton. This dude is going to be one of the best linebackers in college football this year. He is the heart and soul of that defense now. With Cole Bishop and with Jonah Ellis moved on to the pros, there is a void to be filled for the leader of that defense, and Lander Barton could easily fill that role. I think he's only in his second year. He may be a junior. I'm pretty sure he was a true freshman last year. But regardless, he's going to be stepping into a very pivotal role for the Utes defense. I have a pretty good feeling that that defense is going to continue to be good, as they have for the last decade plus. This is a great team from top to bottom. ASU gets them at home. That gives you the factor of maybe like a trap game for Utah. Unfortunately, it's not super late in the year. It's about midway through the season. I want to say here we go. It's the 6th game of the year, which should be week 7, because ASU will have a bye week before they get to play Utah. So right in the middle of the year, I don't think it's late enough to be a trap game, but who knows? ASU may be playing at a high enough level that they could upset Utah, and maybe Utah doesn't live up to the expectations. But I have to rank these 5. Utah's last for me. That's easily the hardest. It feels like the most unwinnable right now, but who knows? Any given Saturday. And college football is very unpredictable. ASU and Utah have a decent little rivalry as of late. Maybe they can squeak out a win here. Number 4, the second hardest game to win of the ranked opponents, Kansas State. And there's a few reasons that I'm putting this as one of my most difficult. And I could argue this is the most difficult. The only reason why I don't have it, number 5, is because we aren't for sure certain what that quarterback situation is going to look like. I think it's Avery Johnson is their quarterback. Now I'm not 100% sure, but they are going through a transition because you lose Will Johnson, and they lost several other really quality players to the pros and for no more eligibility. This is a team that has a lot to prove this year. But with that being said, they're still a very good football program, and they are more than likely going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12. The reason why I think this game is probably out of reach for the Sun Devils is because it's in late November and you're going to Manhattan, Kansas. And if you have not been to Manhattan, Kansas, it's pretty cold. It is pretty cold. And ASU plays in the desert. They're not used to that kind of weather. In fact, they're not really used to it, period. The coldest places you would play would be Washington and Oregon. And it feels like those games more often than not were scheduled earlier in the season. ASU is not used to cold weather games, certainly not Midwest cold. It's going to be a challenge for you. And going to a rival place, which I don't know if ASU has ever been to Manhattan before. That'd be really interesting to look up. I don't like their odds at all. As of right now, the only reason I don't have that as your hardest game is simply because we aren't really sure if K-State is going to be, pick up right where they left off last year, or if there is going to be a step back, which it's very reasonable to expect that K-State is not going to be one of the heavyweights in the Big 12 this year. But again, they have Avery Johnson at quarterback, and he's a very talented dual threat kind of player. Whatever they have for him at his disposal, They're well coached. They have a great home field environment. It's a very difficult situation for the Sun Devils. It's going to be cold, and K-State plays hard-nosed football. There's a chance that maybe you exceed expectations and K-State does not. Who knows? But as of right now, that's my second hardest game. It's almost a coin flip. As good as Utah is, the difference is you get them at home. You have to go to Kansas State. That's a brutal game, in my opinion. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the next two games, right smack dab in the middle of maybe they can win, maybe they can't win, as we get closer to the game that I think is the most winnable for the Sun Devils. We'll jump into that in just one moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thanks again for making the Locked On Sun Devils podcast your first listen of the day. Do me a favor, go ahead and check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Friend of the show, Spencer McLaughlin, gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussions about the upcoming year, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, new expanded playoff, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you have not hit subscribe yet on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. We'll find a way to celebrate together. Back into the show, taking a look at the next two games that are kind of in the middle of winnable and unwinnable for ASU. The Utah and K-State games are as close to unwinnable as you're going to get. This next game, right in the middle, literally on the list, right in the middle. But even if I tiered it, I would tell you that number 3 here, not quite a coin flip, but I can see them winning it. And that's Oklahoma State. Number 17, Oklahoma State. Call me crazy. I totally deserve it. Oklahoma State is a very good football team, and they are a program that should be one of the favorites to win the Big 12. In my opinion, if it's not Utah, I'd probably go Oklahoma State. I'm really tempted to go Kansas State, but as of right now, I would give the edge to Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State, all they need is Ollie Gordon in the backfield, and they're good to go. He is probably the best running back in the country, just came off a Doak Walker win, and has a chance to do it again this year. He's going to power that offense. The rest, all you need to do is manage the game. And I know they've got decent guys going on at quarterback. I can't remember if Alex Bowman is still there or not. They've got a Presley, I can't remember his name, wide receiver, little slot guy, just dump the ball off to him. They got weapons on offense. They have a very quality defense. Colin Oliver is one of the best kept secrets in the Big 12 at linebacker / edge rusher. Oklahoma State's a good team. You also have to go to Stillwater for this game. This is a late season game as well. This is towards the end of October, beginning of November, in that ballpark. I have the schedule in front of me. I can just check. But this is November 2nd. So this is not an easy game in theory. The reason why I don't have it lower on the list of hardest games, ASU has played them tough. This will be the third straight year that they will be playing Oklahoma State. 2 years ago, the 2022 season, ASU was like in the game. They ended up losing that, I want to say 34-17, 3 possessions. That was not a bad game from the Sun Devils team. They did a lot of good things. They just had no offense. This was Emory Jones leading the offense, and they were constraining him to his abilities as a runner. He wasn't able to play to his strengths, and ASU was really trying to figure themselves out in week 2 of that season, and a bad season for ASU. Nonetheless, it was a lot closer than the 17-point difference would imply for you. There was a lot of giveaways that ASU gave to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State probably should have beat you by 25 or more, but you were right there. If you watched that game, you know it was closer. Last year, they could have beat them. This is a Sun Devils team that we've talked about. They've got to learn how to win games this year. They have to learn how to close out the close games and turn them into W's. Like, you very easily could have been a 6-win team last year. You might have been a 7-win team. The difference between last year and this year is hopefully you will have guys that understand how to close out those games. Oklahoma State was one of those close games last year, and it was early in the year, week 2. ASU very easily could have won that game. Unfortunately, they had some injuries, and they couldn't do anything on offense. Maybe that changes this year. The defense is still going to be really good. There's plenty of optimism here that ASU can get things on the right track, that they can make this season a much better season than they were last year, be a much better team than Oklahoma State has played the last 2 years. The thing that just makes it tough is you have to go to Stillwater. If this game was in Tempe, I would be a little more confident, only because ASU has played them tough. But unfortunately, you got to go on the road, and that's not going to be an easy game. I put it right smack dab in the middle. I think you can win it. I'm not counting on you to win it. It's kind of right there, I suppose. I would lean towards that's a loss, though. Number 2. And number 2 for me, this is a game that I don't know if I would say I expect them to win it, but this is a winnable game for ASU. And that is number 22, Kansas. You get them in Tempe. One of the biggest deciding factors for this game will be if Jalen Daniels is healthy for Kansas. Jalen Daniels is a beast at quarterback. He is a dual threat. He has a big arm. He's fast. I don't know if I would say he's like NFL caliber, but it wouldn't be that far off if he could put together a healthy season. He's a monster. The problem is he's been injured. The last 2 years he's been beat up. And their backup quarterback, of course I can't remember his name. Bean was his last name. B-E-A-N. I can't remember his first name. I want to say Sean, but I don't think that's right. He's gone. You do not have your ace in the hole backup quarterback. So if Jalen Daniels goes down, what's your plan? What happens next? And unfortunately, with it being the story of his career, you kind of have to talk about it as somewhat a possibility that Kansas may be playing this game without their ace quarterback. And if they are playing without their ace quarterback, I tell you, this has to be a win. This has to be a win if Jalen Daniels is not there. If Jalen Daniels is there, it's still kind of a must-win game. This is one of your best opportunities to get a signature win for the season, especially in the middle of the year. ASU's got a tough schedule. They still have to play Texas Tech. They have to play UCF. They are playing tough quality opponents. Kansas is right in that category of tough quality opponent. It really is going to depend on Jalen Daniels. If Jalen Daniels is playing, this becomes a much tougher obstacle for you. If he's not playing, you should be able to win it. The problem is on defense, they got a good secondary. They got Kobe Bryant, who is another very good defensive back for the Big 12. In a conference that has a lot of good defensive back talent, Kobe Bryant is one of the guys that gets a lot of the love, and he should. So they got stars on both sides. Can you find a way to dig deep and get a signature home win this year? If you can get a signature home win this year, Kansas feels like the most realistic, and it feels like your best opportunity. They are ranked, they are really good, they're really well coached. You beat Kansas, first of all, it's early enough in the season. That is week 5 for you. It's early enough in the year that you get that win and you kind of get the attention of people and they go, whoa, hold on a second. Arizona State just got an upset. Maybe they're on the upswing. Maybe they're better than what we thought they were going to be. So who knows? But what I do know is that Kansas is the second most winnable game for the Sun Devils as far as their ranked opponents go for 2024. I'm sure you can guess who I have as the number 1 most winnable game. You may think I'm crazy, but I'm about to tell you exactly why ASU can and will win this game. We'll talk about it in a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop, but there's no playoffs right now. We're getting fewer games, and sports aren't sporting like I want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball. One more time, wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. If you have not hit subscribe on YouTube, do me a favor, hit subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers. We'll find a way to celebrate as a channel when that time eventually arrives for us. The number 1 most winnable game. Say it with me. The Territorial Cup. Playing Arizona. I don't care if it's in Tucson. I don't care if it's in Tempe. I don't care if it's on Mars. This is a winnable game every single year. I don't care if ASU is 0-11 and Arizona is 11-0 when you go into this game. This is a winnable game every single year. Without question. It's a classic rivalry. Take the record books, throw them out. It doesn't matter. These are two programs that hate each other. There's no respect. They hate each other. You are born and bred to hate the opposing college. You don't even have to live in the state of Arizona. You can come from the other side of the country as a recruit and come to Arizona or come to Arizona State, and you will learn to hate them very, very quickly. It's politically driven. It is sports driven. It's a rivalry that goes back to the 1800s. This is a very, very serious rivalry game, which is why every single year this is a winnable game for ASU. The other reason it's winnable is U of A is replacing a lot of talent. They lose Jordan Morgan. They lose Jacob Cowing. They lose Jonah Coleman in the backfield. They lose Ephesians Prysock in the secondary. They have players to replace. Now, the good news for them is they've got a lot of NFL talent. Noah Fafita, he's a very good football player. T-Mac at wide receiver, he's a beast. He's a first-round pick. Takario Davis in the secondary, he's really, really good, and he's really big too. Their linebacker, Jacob Manu, is really good. On the offensive line, they got Jonah S. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't want to butcher it. Jonah S., very good. Could be a tackle, could be a guard. They've got players on both sides of football. They have a kicker who's really good. And I can't think of his name off the top of my head. However, it's a rivalry game. This is always winnable. And vice versa. It's always winnable for U of A. Like, Arizona State could be 11-0. And U of A could be 0-11. It's a winnable game for both teams. It goes both ways. Anything can happen in a rivalry game. Ask Alabama. Auburn gets them all the time. Even when Auburn is not one of the best teams in the SEC. Even when Auburn is barely a bowl team. They still find a way to compete. You have these rivalries across the country where it just doesn't matter how talented you are, how well coached you are. You can lose that game every single time that you play them. Arizona and Arizona State are exactly that. There is always a possibility that you lose that game. Circle it on your calendar. What do we say in the desert? That's the only game that matters. That is the game that decides your season. You have a successful season if you beat U of A. You have an unsuccessful season if you do not beat U of A. ASU also has history on their side. Since the turn of the century, ASU absolutely owns the rivalry. U of A has never won 3 straight against ASU since the turn of the century. ASU owns this rivalry. And before the U of A fans get in my comments, because I know that you will pop up, first of all, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys as well. You may have the all-time winning record. You got a lot of those wins before ASU was actually a genuine football program. So all I'm saying is once ASU was able to get on the same level, we own that rivalry. So don't know what to tell you. Fall down, Arizona. But back on topic, this is always a winnable game. This is always a winnable game. U of A, more talented. We can call it as it is. There are first-round picks on both sides of the football that are going to the NFL level. There are several players who aren't, day one guys that are still going to have a chance at the next level. They also are trying to figure out how you're going to play this year. You got a brand new head coach. It's a brand new locker room and philosophy after why can't I remember his name? Whatever their head coach, Jed Fish. After Jed Fish left to go to Washington, you replace him with Brent Brennan, who I believe is coming from Cal Poly. I can't remember for sure where he's coming from. It might be like San Jose State or something. I don't know. Somewhere in California. But it's going to be tough. It's never going to be easy trying to replace one of the better coaches in college football. You have to replace him. You have to replace several other players. There's no guarantee that U of A is going to live up to expectations. There's no guarantee that they're ranked by the time ASU gets a chance to play them. I'll be bold and say this. There's no guarantee they're going to be a bowl team by the time they get to ASU. I'll go ahead and plant that flag. There's a lot of stuff going on. You can be as talented as any other team in the world. It doesn't matter given the circumstances you have. Things happen. Texas A&M consistently getting some of the best recruiting classes in the country. What do they do with it? Not much. Sorry to cast a stray bullet over there at College Station, but it's always tough to overcome your circumstances. Arizona has a lot to overcome this year, and ASU could catch them sleeping. ASU very easily could have won 6 straight. That 2022 game, that was really back and forth. It was a very good game. It went to Arizona. Last year, you got your butt kicked. Just call it as it is. They can easily take the cut back this year. I am counting on them to take the cut back this year. Granted, I take them every single time. Every single time I will take ASU to win that game. I will never, ever, ever not take them, biased or not. ASU is going to win the game this year. At worst, this is the most winnable game on their schedule when it comes to ranked opponents. I don't care if it's in Tucson, Tempe, or on the moon, like I already said. This is a winnable game. This is the most winnable game for ASU. Because again, it's the very last game of the year. We're going to know who they are. We're going to know who we are too. We could be fighting for bowl eligibility. They could be fighting to save their lives. There's all sorts that can change from August 12th to November 30th. We'll wait and see. But that's my list for the most winnable ranked games for the Sun Devils in 2024. What's your guys' order? What's the hardest? What's the easiest? Why are we beating U of A? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Like I said, we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here. We are right around the corner at 857. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet already. Help us get to that mark, and we'll find a way to celebrate together as a channel. We will be back again tomorrow to talk more ASU sports. I'll see you then. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.